Hello, this is a review of the film Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. The film has been out for a couple of months, and I waited till I could see it without having to pay for it. At this point in my life, I'm not going to pay a cent to see anything that Hollywood puts out because Hollywood is just such a blatant white supremacist propaganda machine that I never pay. I haven't paid to see a movie since 2014, and I don't plan on ever doing it again. And I finally got a chance to see this movie a short time ago, and I just want to get it out of my system because there are things in about the movie that just bothers me, and this is just more just to get it out of my system. The reaction to the film has been very striking. I mean, the film came out 2 months ago, and I read a lot of movie reviews online, and this movie has gotten unanimous praise across the internet. Even to this day, I'm still seeing articles being posted talking about this movie. 2 months after it comes out, this almost never happens. And usually people at a certain point stop talking about a movie after it's made its money, and people just forget about it. But this movie, every time if I go looking on the internet, is always a new article talking about this movie 2 months later. And that makes me very suspicious. Anything that is popular in the system of white supremacy should make you suspicious. Anything that people, because this society does not praise things. An unjust society doesn't praise things that are actually, promoting justice. So, and the fact that the people seem to be like a lot of white people like this movie, and that really makes anything white people like makes me suspicious. So the reaction to this movie caused me to it's just gotten really, really annoying. And before I even saw the movie, I was tired of it. You know. And film culture today is so full of. So most of the people who go to see these movies nowadays are not like film people that actually know film and all that. And like me, I went to art school to study film production. So I'm not an expert on film, but I do have more knowledge than the average person that goes to the movies, and I judge it as a film. And most people who go to movies nowadays don't really judge the film they go see as a film. They're just consumers who go to pay to see movies, and and don't really pay much attention to the movie that they're seeing, other than the most shallow stuff that's on the screen. But what the movie's actually saying, they totally disregard. That's what I pay attention to: the techniques being used in the movie and what the movie is actually saying. And in relation to Get Out, that's why that movie left much to be desired, and that's why the reaction to me after seeing the movie, the reaction is even more baffling to me and disturbing. The setup for the movie pretty much like sums up the problem. One of the main problems with this movie is that it is extremely thin. I mean, Jordan Peele, this is his directorial debut, and watching the film, I can tell that it was the first movie that he made. I know it's a low budget movie, and I have nothing against low budget movies. A great low budget to me is better than a great big budget movie to me because it requires more talent to be made. But watching the film, you could tell that he had never directed a movie before in the thinness of everything, the thinness of the characterizations. The whole premise of the movie is so thin. I mean, just the very setup of the movie, the opening shot of the movie, just one long shot of a guy walking down the street. He walking, then a car rides past him, then turns around and comes back towards him. He walks away. The camera pans away from the car. He looks back at the car. The door is open. Then the guy comes around and grabs him and throws him in the truck. And then the title starts. I mean, that's supposed to set the tone. That's supposed to be like a horror movie sort of opening. I watch a lot of low budget movies. I watch a lot of horror movies, and this is a sort of routine. Only difference with this is that it wasn't like gory, graphic. It was just a guy that got grabbed, and that opening scene sets up the sort of thinness of the situation, because the basic premise of the movie is that this white woman is like she's the bait that leads all these black men to their doom. But the opening scene of the movie establishes that they just ride around grabbing random black men off the street. So that seems like their whole plan of these white people seems to be very sloppy. Like, it could easily collapse. Like, what if that guy they tried to grab off the street in the opening scene was like a Navy SEAL or something and fought off the guy that tried to grab him and took him to the police or something? Like that, like that's the whole plan of the movie. It seems so thin, and it doesn't make any sense. Why does she need to extend months to go to lure black men to their doom if they just grabbing black men off the street? It doesn't make any sense. And then you meet the lead character and his white girlfriend, and the actors, I have to say, the actors had absolutely no chemistry at all. They were not believable for a second that these people were actually a couple. It reminded me a lot of another movie that I've seen recently, a black and white movie that came out last year called Live Cargo, another one with a white female and a black male, and it was not believable for a second that these people were actually a couple. And that's a directorial thing, that Jordan Peele did not really commit to making this relationship seem believable, that these people would have some sort of common interest or anything. I know they've only been together in the movie, at least they said, like 4 or 5 months. They haven't been together for that long. But again, just the fact that they've only been together a few months and he's going to spend a weekend with her and her parents' house, like that seemed to be ridiculous to me. And right before they leave, he asked her if the parents know that he's black. That's something I would think that he would have asked way before ahead of time, but he gonna ask her just then before they leave. Like, it's just, again, to me, that sets up the real sort of the cookie cutter aspect of this. The script of this movie, it reads like an outline, like it wasn't really fully developed. The characters don't feel fully developed. The movie, what happens in the movie is what needs to happen for the plot. But the movie, the whole characterizations and the premise of the movie is razor thin. Adding to the thinness is the fact that is how the white people who are running this whole almost organization centered on in keeping all of these decrepit old white people alive by using black bodies. The whole convention in the middle of the movie with all these white people coming to the house and this one black male amongst all these decrepit old white people. I mean, it was cringe-inducing, the whole thing, but it wasn't funny. That's the thing, is that this movie was marketed as a horror comedy, and me personally, it wasn't really much of either. It wasn't scary, it wasn't horrific, and it wasn't funny. I didn't laugh once the whole movie. The movie is, I mean, the overt sort of racialized dialogue, the lack of psychological complexity of the characters, and the sort of bluntness of the racialized dialogue in the movie, like the girl talking about, her parents voted for Barack Obama, and then the father says to him that he voted for Barack Obama, repeats the whole thing to him. And the father, blatantly saying to the guy, like, I know how it looks, black maid, black groundskeeper and all that, how it looks, white people, black people working for him and all that. The movie felt like if Spike Lee had directed a horror movie, because Spike Lee movies are notorious for his characters not having, psychological complexity. Apart from when he adapted Malcolm X, of course. But pretty much almost every other one of his movies, the characters are always sort of cookie cutter, sort of caricatures. They're not real people. And the dialogue is very blunt. The characters never keep their feelings to themselves. They say everything that's on their mind, and real people don't say everything that's on their mind. But in this movie, Jordan Peele, because he's a comedic sort of writer, he comes across a lot like a lot of black comedians. Like, if a black comedian in the system of white supremacy, black comedians, in order to be successful, their comedy always has to be profoundly anti-black. They can occasionally might be able to take a shot at white people, but their comedy overwhelmingly has to be putting down black people and making fun of black people. Or not, that's non-white comedians in general. To be successful, you have to put down whatever race you are. And Jordan Peele's comedy, I've seen other movies that he was in, like Keanu last year, another movie with a lot of anti-blackness in that movie, a lot of it. He didn't direct that movie, but he was in it, and I think he was one of the writers for that. Bad movie with a lot of anti-blackness. In this movie, the movie isn't as profoundly anti-black as that in terms of the dialogue. I mean, the movie doesn't have any racial slurs or anything in it. I mean, it's meant to be, it's from what I heard, a critique of liberal racism. So it's not like a Tarantino movie. The word nigger isn't used once the whole movie. And the white people, the way they're characterized, they aren't really like overtly hostile or anything towards the lead character. They're very sort of serene and like they've done this before. The movie is modeled on, say, 1950s sort of body snatcher type movies when it comes to horror. It's very little sort of horrific stuff, and it's really nothing horrific, and it's mostly about creepiness. It's lots of shots of people, of the creepiness of the groundskeeper and the housemaid, the maid in the house, the creepiness of their way they behave, and shots of like sort of lingering shots of people watching him. Interacting with the white people as if they know what's going to happen to him. it's more about tone. That's why it feels like a first time director made the movie. For a lot of movies made by first time directors, it's more about tone and style and there's very little actual substance or content in the film. It's more about mood and everything. And this movie has numerous instances where it's just all about the mood, all about setting up a sort of creepy environment, but hardly anything happens in the movie, which really makes it feel like a low budget movie. Like they couldn't afford makeup effects, special effects, gore effects, that kind of stuff. So very little actually happens in the movie. It's mostly just a lot of teasing. And that's like about an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, because the lead character, the white people don't actually launch their plan, fully until like an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. So you basically like 70 minutes of the movie is just teasing, and it's boring. There are no real performances in the movie. I mean, there's no interesting performance because, like I said, like the characters they're not fully fleshed out characters. The lead character is just a blank slate for the audience. He's not, other than being a photographer, that's all that he is, as for all his character is. And they throw in his backstory with his mother's death and everything, but it's not like he's not really allowed to go on any sort of redemptive journey. I mean, at the end of the movie, he hits the black housemaid with the car and then goes back and picks her up and puts her into his car, but eventually she ends up dead anyway. So it's not like the movie is about him redeeming himself for letting his mother die. That's not the kind of movie it is. It's not a redemptive story of his character. His character doesn't really go on a journey. He doesn't learn anything in the movie. His character is not very proactive. He spends most of the movie just watching things happen, observing, just while he's slowly being, the white people are formulating this plan for his destruction, and he's just sort of waddling. There's so many instances in this movie where his character, it makes no sense why his character would even be there in the first place. There's no reason for him to be there. He's only known this girl for a few months, and yet he's staying in her parents' house and everything, and these white people, it makes no sense at all. The whole situation feels so implausible. And the whole movie, that is one of the things that watching the movie, the whole situation, it feels like, why is this happening? I mean, what's going on seems so obvious while you're watching the movie, but the lead character is totally unaware of what's going on. I mean, he comes back to his room and somebody's unplugged like his phone charger and stuff repeatedly in the movie. And he whines a little bit to his girlfriend, to his white girlfriend, who we're supposed to think is good the whole movie. They really beat you over the top with the idea that she's a good white person and expect you to buy that, especially with that BS regarding the cop asking for his ID when he didn't do anything. She crashed the car and then the cop asked for his ID and she defends him to the cop and all that. The movie really tries to convince you that she's the good one of the whole, that she's different from the rest. And her parents, there's just their performances are just, they don't have characters. Like there are almost no scenes of them just like the whole movie. Clearly, they're planning something for the lead character, but you don't see any scenes with like them just amongst themselves with him not around talking about the plan or displaying some sort of human characteristics, distinct personality traits, details. No, all was how they look and maybe their jobs, and that's about it. They don't have only person that gives kind of a performance a little bit is the girlfriend's brother. He's the only white person in the whole movie who displays any sort of physical sort of hostility where he like physically wants to get his hands on the lead character, and he's the only person who really like puts up who actually like fights the lead character in the movie amongst the white people who's physical. And because most of the movie, the movie seems to go out of its way to not show white people as being overtly violent in the movie. That they're much more the only good thing I can say about the movie is that it does present races as being scientific. That it's always annoying when people try to present racists as just dumb rednecks. When white people haven't gotten to where they are on the planet, just being dumb rednecks. The white people are very scientific about their racism, and they plan stuff out. And rarely in a movie do you see racists presented that way. They're just presented as just dumb hillbillies. And that's about the only good thing that I really could say about the movie in terms of any sort of critiquing of racism. the movie expects you. I mean, when the lead girl, when the white girlfriend turns on him in the movie, that's supposed to be like a shocking moment, and then the rest of the movie she's sort of stone faced. You know, all of a sudden she shifts and she's all of a sudden presented as like the ringleader of the whole thing after she's been revealed. When the friend on the outside calls looking for his friend, she's talking to him stone faced on a cell phone, trying to making excuses about, oh, he left in a taxi or whatever, and her face is just totally emotionless. She all of a sudden shifts into it is like I said, it feels like something like a invasion of the body snatchers type thing. The way the people behave, the people don't behave at all human in the least bit. Also, being that it's, Jordan Peele is a first time director, the film just feels like non-committal. Like it doesn't commit to an idea. The film, like it doesn't. When I think of horror comedy, I think of stuff like Evil Dead, stuff that's really over the top, so over the top that it's funny. This movie was marketed as a horror comedy, and yet, like I said, it wasn't horrific and it wasn't funny. It didn't commit to the horror and it didn't commit to the comedy. Like most of the comedy in the movie comes from the friend on the outside, when at the most horrific moment of the movie, when the lead character is being held against his will, and when white people have launched their plan and he's all tied up, then all of a sudden they start cutting to his friend who's not in danger, trying to unravel the mystery and going to the police and sounding and talking to the white girlfriend and sounding like a complete buffoon. And he's all silly and unintelligent in the way he tries to explain to the police that this black man that has gone missing, that he was at the house that day, and the police and it's understandable why the police would just not care what he's saying, because he sounds so irrational. It's not like the movie is critiquing the fact that the police don't care that when black people go missing. The movie isn't saying that. The movie presents him as he comes across crazy, and the police just laugh at him because he sounds so stupid. And this is supposed to be funny because he just keeps repeating sex slave over and over again. And I'm supposed to find that funny. And the police laugh at him. And it's not funny at all. It's just annoying. And it's taken away from the horror of the fact that the lead character is tied up, and we don't even. That's still at that point in the movie. We still don't even know what they're going to do to him, because most of the movie, they leave it really vague what the plan actually is, exactly what they're going to do to him. It's not clear. They didn't make it clear early on that they were using like taking white people's brains and like putting them into black people's bodies. And prolonging their lives that way. It wasn't even clear. And it was what exactly I thought. They didn't make it clear if it was, or like they were transferring organs from black people to the white people to sustain their lives. I would have thought they were going that way, since we all know that happens in real life when black people go missing. Then all of a sudden their organs are missing and everything. But the movie doesn't go that route. Because the movie wants to have black people with the tops of their heads stitched together, like because they had white people's brains or put into their heads. The movie doesn't commit to the horror. I mean, the lead opening of the movie, we see a black man randomly grabbed off the street. We never see that guy again. We don't even know what happened to him. I mean, the lead character is tied up in a room by himself watching television, letting him basically describing to him what was going to happen to him, which doesn't even make any sense. Why would they even care to even explain to him what's going to happen to him? He's going to be knocked out during the whole thing anyway, so does it matter? Like I said, the movie doesn't commit to the horror of it. Like if you were going to commit to the horror of it, you would have that black man that was grabbed at the beginning of the movie. He would be chained or tied up in that room with him, and we would see what's going to happen to the lead character. We would see actually done to him. Then that would already let us know exactly what's going to happen and how horrific it is. The movie doesn't do that. The movie doesn't commit to the horror. There's none of that. I didn't expect going in this thinking it was going to be like torture porn sort of horror, like he was going to be tied up and being tortured or anything. I wasn't expecting that. But establishing a clear threat or a danger, the movie doesn't do that. We don't ever see anything bad happen. In fact, the only violence that we see in this movie, the first violence we see, comes from the lead character when he escapes and he kills his white girlfriend's father, and he kills her mother, and he kills her brother. That's the first violence we see in the movie. We never see white people doing anything violent in the movie. again, when it comes to lack of devotion, it bothered the whole relationship that they established between these two at the very beginning of the movie that came across non-existent, that didn't come across real, that came across phony. The movie didn't even commit to that. I mean, like they had just been dating for a few months and then go home to her. Like, I thought this movie was going to be like a 21st century Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but they weren't engaged. They would just been going out for a few months. The movie would have been, I would have thought it would have been more sadistic and more had they actually been together for nearly a year and were actually engaged to be married, and yet she still was planning to do this to him. Like, that would have made her look even worse, even more sadistic, and it would have actually made it more believable if they were actually a couple, or or just establish something that would have linked those two together as far as their work goes, or an intense, sexual relationship, or something to make you understand why these two were together. The movie doesn't commit to any of this. It doesn't show the guts to commit to any of these things in the movie. Everything feels cookie cutter. Doesn't commit to the horror, doesn't commit to the comedy, and by the end of it, you just wonder what was the point of all that. I mean, it's easy to say that, the movie is saying that, interracial arrangements shouldn't happen, but the director is married to a white woman, so obviously the movie isn't meant to say that, black men shouldn't go out with white women. On the surface, it seems like that's what the movie is saying, but that would really just make the director look like he's full of it, really. I mean, how can that possibly be his intention? Like I said, to me, this movie just comes across like it's just exploiting the racism in the air, in the news and everything, and exploiting racial tension in the society. It's exploiting that. It's not commenting on it. It's not. This is the kind of this fact that white people like the movie tells you that this movie is not getting at the truth about racism. It's funny, white people responded to this movie how they did early last year at the Cannes Film Festival, I think it was, when the birth of Nate Parker's A Birth of a Nation premiered. And everyone was saying, oh my God, the movie was so great. It's going to be an early Oscar contender and all that. And then white people launched their media attack on Nate Parker right when the movie was going to be released in theaters. And then all of a sudden, the movie just vanished and people stopped talking about it. And then all of a sudden, those same people that were talking about how great Birth of a Nation was last year, all of a sudden, all these people are championing Get Out. And of course, Nate Parker, another black man married to a white woman, making a movie that's supposedly critiquing or racism. And to me, both these movies feel like a product of guilt of black men in tacky arrangements that they know they shouldn't be in. And it's a sort of a therapy for them. Because obviously the message of neither film is that black people and white people just shouldn't be around each other, and black people need to forge their own paths separate from white people. That's obviously not the message that's not what the filmmaker is intending. But again, because of the filmmakers, because of their personal lives, the movies just come across confused. Like it's not really, the director doesn't really have a point to make in the movie. I mean, at the end of the movie, his white girlfriend is the last person, the last surviving, person, and she, after he's killed her brother, her mother, her father, and his car is crashed, killing the housemaid who was sitting in the car with him, and then she sicks her the groundskeeper on him, and he flashes the camera, waking him out of his zombified state, and he shoots her with it makes no sense why she would give him the gun anyway. She gives him the gun, and he shoots her, and then he shoots himself for no reason. But she's still alive, and the lead character looks like he's going to strangle his white girlfriend to death. And she's smiling. She starts smiling while he's strangling her, and he can't do it. It seems like in the movie, even after all that he's experienced in the movie, even when it's been so clear what her intentions are for him, he still has feelings for her. Even earlier in the movie, when he finds all those pictures that she had with all of her liaisons with all those other black men, he still is trying to leave with her. He's still holding out hope that she's not one of them. And at the end of the movie, he has his hand around her neck to kill her, and he doesn't kill her. He killed all the other people, but he wouldn't kill her. Like he still had feelings for her after all of that. And I didn't mind him leaving her to die. I mean, just leaving her there. I didn't mind that. But the fact that he couldn't kill her, it just came across like he still had feelings for her after all of what occurred in the movie. Like his character really hadn't learned anything. And the fact that like right when he lets her go, or decides he isn't going to kill her, then all of a sudden you see lights dabbling on him, and you think the police have rolled up, and she's yelling, "Help! Help! Help!" Black man choking a white woman. The police, that's going to happen. Then you find out that it was his friend that has been trying to help him the whole movie. That works for the airport, who rolled up at that exact moment. He just happened to show up here. Again, it's one of those kind of movies where characters show up right exactly when they're needed. It's like really the movie feel like you could have cut his friend out of the movie completely, and it actually would have probably been a better movie because his friend didn't add to wasn't funny. It took away from the horror of the isolation. Usually horror deals with isolation, and when you have a character who's tied up, restrained, you usually have to staying with that character is what keeps the horror. When you cut away from that, it takes away from the horror. So the movie probably would have been better had they cut his friend out completely. And when his friend picks him up and they drive away, you just leave the white woman laying there dying. The movie just like you just ask them, what was the point of all this? Like exactly what is the director saying? The director isn't saying anything. The director is just exploiting racial tension in the air. I think the kind of people that would like this movie are the same kind of people that like, Quentin Tarantino movies. Because Tarantino's movies don't critique racism or anything, really. Tarantino is just he's an exploiter. His movies are modeled on, 1970s exploitation movies. Except those movies that came out in the 70s were actually attempting to be political in a way. And they had more guts than Tarantino has, And Tarantino doesn't mind offending in regards to the use of the word nigger. He doesn't mind offending there, but there are still certain areas that he is not willing to go into. He didn't go as far in his movies as movies like Mandingo or Drum. Those movies went further. And those movies also, the finales of those movies were all sparked by the interaction between a black male and a white female. Both endings of both of those movies were sparked by that. I mean, but there've been a lot of movies made about racism, but a white woman is almost always the cause for any mistreatment of black men at the hands of a white woman is almost always involved. But the kind of people that made Get Out such a enormous success, those are the kind of people that are not really committed to justice, the kind of people who like to give the impression that they're against racism. The kind of people who go out and protest every time a police shoot a black person, and for a few weeks, and then they go back to their normal lives. People that aren't really interested in real change. Not the kind of people that have never heard of people like Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, or Neely Fuller Jr., or Dr. Amos Wilson, or Dr. Bobby Wright, or Dr. Murumba Ani. People have never heard of people like this. People have definitely never read a book written by any of them. These aren't the people who are going to see Get Out and enjoying it. I mean, it's one of those movies where I can imagine an interracial couple going to see this movie and enjoying it. I mean, I've read articles about interracial couples seeing this movie. And to me, that sounds so incredibly tacky to see, a black person and a white person dating, going to see this movie. It just makes me cringe just thinking about it. Well, a black person and a white person together just makes me cringe anyway. But watching the movie, it just comes across just so tacky. And in fact, this movie came out so within like a few months of a couple other movies that are almost promotional of interracial arrangements in Loving and the United Kingdom. I've never seen Loving, but United Kingdom was a horrific movie. One of the most cringe-inducing movies to watch. It felt like propaganda. Pretty much, it was promoting interracial arrangements as these people as heroes. As though being the people who engage in these sort of arrangements are the most heroic people that should be praised, and nothing could be further from the truth. That movie was just the very definition of propaganda, And so as far as like recent movies where racism is the topic of discussion, or of the movie, The Birth of a Nation is probably the best of those movies. It gets closer to the truth than some of these other ones, even though that movie is still flawed. but it was a lot better than Hidden Figures or something like that. Like those movies, just bad films. But Hidden Figures was sort of Disney-fied racism that didn't depict white people as being bad in any sort of way. When in that movie, all a black person has to do is complain, open their mouth, and white people instantly change everything. They change their philosophies, they change the rules. The movie just presented racist white people as people following the rules. They weren't malevolent in any sort of way. Which, of course, would make the movie very comforting for white people to watch because it doesn't depict white people as being bad in any sort of way. Birth of a Nation doesn't depict really any white people in the movie that aren't racist. And by the end of the movie, white people are just depicted as just almost complete savages by the end of it, especially in the aftermath of Nat Turner's insurrection. The violent aftermath of white people are just, to the very end of the movie, just presented as just violent, screaming, snarling savages, which is closer to the truth. Like I said, Get Out, it comes closer to Hidden Figures than like Birth of a Nation, though. In Get Out, no white people are depicted as being not racist in the movie. Only white people in the movie is the cop that stops them, and the white girl and her family, and the white people that show up to the auction for the lead character of the movie to be auctioned off. All those white people, none of the white people in the movie are presented as not being racist, which is just like in The Birth of a Nation. No white people in that movie are depicted as not being racist. In Hidden Figures, the exact opposite with white people. None of the white people are made to look really bad in the movie by the end of it. Just total Disney-fied, it's kind of stuff that you should really keep your children away from. The story itself, Hidden Figures, I think is a story that black people should know, and I'm not sure. I hope that there's a book about it. There's some other way that people can get access to the information of these women's story. But the movie, ignore the movie. The movie is garbage. The movie is propaganda made to make white people look better than they should. The Birth of a Nation, it's a lot better than 12 Years a Slave or something, in the sense that it actually shows black people showing some resistance, fighting back. Seems like the only time you actually see any movies where black people are actually like talking to each other or even suggest that they even feel anything for each other is in a movie where they're slaves. You never see, almost no. It's hard to find contemporary movies where a black male and a black female show any sort of affection for each other in the movie. And The Birth of a Nation has like a little love story in there that they throw in regarding Nat Turner and his girl, but and it actually does show with Gabrielle Union and getting married stuff in the movie and all that. They actually show only time you see black men and black women showing any sort of affection for each other is in a movie where they're playing slaves. And I've never seen Underground, the TV show. I'm not watching any of that garbage. Or the Roots reboot TV show. I'm not watching any of that garbage. I'm not going to waste any of my time on any of that. Overall, Get Out is a movie that just, like I said, I've been waiting a couple of months to see the movie. After it was over, I just felt like that was it. That's what this is what a movie that's made like $150 million in America. It hasn't done much overseas. You should know that it's hardly made any money overseas. All the money has been made has been in America. And everybody's talking about how great it is, and this is a new age of black cinema and all that, and all of this hyperbole that just does not fit the movie at all. The movie it is such a minor. I can't even really call it an achievement. Really, it's nothing there, nothing of any consequence, nothing of any importance that occurs in the movie, in my opinion. It's not, of all the movies I've seen where racism is a topic of discussion, it left so little impression because it didn't commit to anything. It didn't commit to anything, any sort of harshness in terms of feelings. It's just everything is just cookie cutter. And I said that it's better for you to just read books that detail the evils of interracial arrangements. Just read The Interracial Con Game. That's the book that I read that introduced me to Dr. Francis Quest Welsing and Neely Fuller Jr. and the Cows radio program. they got me reading books about racism. Just read that book. You don't need to watch Get Out. The movie's a waste of it's a waste of time. It's not a good movie. Again, Spike Lee kept coming to mind watching the movie because of the lack of subtlety. There's nothing subtle about the movie in terms of the performances, the dialogue. The movie seemed to be talking down to the audience. Like the audience were a bunch of idiots that knows that, though racism is in the air, people out protesting, police shootings, and you got a racist in the White House, and so we can make a movie where the white people are doing something to the black people, and that'll just be enough to get people to think that the movie is topical, that the movie is commenting on racism and is really intelligent, and it's not at all. The movie doesn't really commit to any ideas. It's just exploiting what's in the air at the time, and it's really nauseating to read the reviews for the movie that are just the overwhelming ridiculous praise that the movie is getting is just really irritating. Also, the way that the lead character finds out that his white girlfriend, what she's been doing, she's been the bait leading all these other black men to their doom. The way he finds out is, again, just emblematic of the movie. The way when they've decided, or he's decided, and he's going to leave, and she says she's going to leave with him, and they're packing up in her room, and he sees like a little hatched doorway that's open for some reason, and he looks in the doorway, and it's like a shoebox there, and he opens the shoebox, and all the pictures of her with all the black men that she has been with in the past are right there. Like that just like epitomizes the whole movie. Right when they're about to leave, for some reason, that door is open, and he just so happens to go in there, and she has all these pictures with all these other black men right there, easy for him to find. Like she didn't lock them up or anything. Like it's just that epitomizes the whole the thinness and the stupidity of the whole movie. The movie's just like, but it wasn't presented in like a funny way. The movie expects you to take this stuff seriously. That's the way it's presented. It's not funny. That's as ridiculous as his girlfriend not him asking his girlfriend to her parents know that he's black right before they leave, or his friend showing up in his car right at the very end of the movie when he needs, just like in any sort of horror movie when the police show up after everything that's occurred, like just like the timing, like the whole thing is so just thin and cliche and just non-committal, and as I said, nothing in the movie feels real. And because it does nothing in the movie feels real, it's not effective. It's not effective as a horror movie or as a comedy. And it's offensive to me as someone who likes horror movies to hear anyone say that the movie is a good horror movie or some an addition to the genre, because it's not. That's all I have to say on that. Thanks for listening. Thank you.